Hola, this is Senora Hansen, and this video is called AR Verbs in Spanish. Before watching this video, be sure that you have watched the video that I posted on Edmodo about infinitives and conjugations. It's the Introduction to Verbs in Spanish video. The video that I have here is about conjugating AR verbs. Let's get started. As you know, there are three main types of verbs in Spanish. They are words that end in AR, ER, and IR. Today, we're going to focus on AR verbs. Once you know the pattern for conjugating AR verbs, you'll be able to learn ER verbs and IR verbs a lot easier because the pattern is similar. One thing that's very important to do is to learn a list, your vocabulary list of AR verbs. So some examples are hablar, which means to speak or to talk. Also on your list is cantar, which means to sing. And another one from your list is nadar. Nadar is Spanish for to swim. So the more AR verbs you know, the more you'll be able to speak, the more things you'll be able to say in Spanish. So make sure that you learn the infinitive forms of the AR verbs. If you don't know what I mean by infinitive, make sure you review that first video that I posted called Introduction to Verbs in Spanish. Okay, before we get started with conjugating AR verbs, let's take a look at this chart. Remember these? These are your subject pronouns, and they're going to be very helpful in helping us learn to do our conjugations of AR verbs. So let's quickly review them. In the singular side, we have I, which is yo, tú, which is you, when you're talking to someone familiar to you, younger or a friend, for example. Él, which is he, ella, for she, and usted, for you, formal. Usted is spelled like this, but this is the abbreviation for it, and you'll see that often. Over on the plural side, we have nosotros, if you're a boy, or nosotras, if you're a girl. We have, and that's for we. To say you, plural, when you're talking to a group of people that are familiar to you, like your family, and you're talking to all of them, and you say you would use vosotros if they're all male, or they're a mixed group, and vosotras if they're all female, to say you. To say they, we say ellos for boys. They, if we're talking about girls, is ellas. And you, plural, is ustedes. So notice how your chart is set up. You've got your singular on this side, when you're talking to or about one person, and you have your plural on the right side when you're talking to or about more than one person. Okay, at the top row, we've got first person when you're talking about yourself, second person when you're talking to someone directly and you're using you, and third person when you're talking about someone else. And kind of an exception there is usted goes in this section because of how we're going to use it to help us conjugate verbs, and that will be clearer in a minute. So let's look at how we conjugate a verb in English so that we better understand what we're doing when we get to Spanish. So let's take the verb to sing. That's in the infinitive form. In English, infinitives always say to sing or to run, to go. We always use the word to in front of the action. So when I conjugate to sing so that I can use it in everyday speaking in a sentence or writing, I'm going to say, for example, if I'm talking about myself, I wouldn't say I to sing, I would say I sing. So in English, we drop the to and we either write sing or a form of sing. For you, I would say you sing. For he, she, or it, I would say he sings, or she sings, or it sings. So I add an S. So that's what I mean when I say I'm conjugating the verb. I'm making it fit with who's doing the singing. With we, we'd say we sing. You plural, if I'm talking to a group of people, and I would say you sing, you all sing, and they sing. And for all of these, I don't do a lot in English. I drop the to, and for the third person, singular, I put an S on the end, but for the rest, I just say sing. Spanish is a little more complicated, but it follows a pattern, so that'll help. So, here is how we conjugate an AR verb in Spanish. Let's take the AR verb cantar. Do you remember what that means? In English, that is to sing. Okay, it's an AR verb because it ends in AR. So, just like in English, you drop the to, in Spanish, when you want to conjugate the verb, an AR verb, you're going to drop the AR. You're going to keep the base, in this case cant, and we're going to add these endings for these different subject pronouns. So, it would be canto, cantais, or cantas, canta. Okay, so yo canto, I sing. Tú cantas, you sing. Él canta, or ella canta, or usted canta. He sings, she sings, you formal sing. Nosotros cantamos, we sing. Vosotros cantáis. Ellos, or ustedes, they cantan. Okay, so let's look at another example. This time we have the verb hablar, which means to speak. But we can't say yo hablar, because that would mean I to speak. We've got to conjugate the verb to use it with the subject. So, remember in Spanish, to conjugate the verb, we're going to take the AR off, drop that. We're going to use that base, in this case HABL, and for yo, do you remember what the ending was? Yo hablo. To, you, hablas. Él, he, habla. Okay, and that goes for ella, for she, and usted, you, formal. Habla. Nosotros, that's we. Hablamos. So we have the same beginning as usual, amos. That's for nosotros, we. Vosotros habláis. That's for you, plural, familiar you. And they, ellos, hablan. They speak. Those endings are almost always used, with just very few exceptions, on AR verbs. So if you can learn those endings and you know your pronouns, you'll be able to say just about anything. Okay? One other point. Sometimes you're not using a pronoun. Instead of saying él, he, you might use someone's name. Like Juan speaks. You'd say Juan habla, because Juan would be substituted with él if you wanted to use a pronoun. If you want to say the girls speak, which one do you think you would use? Okay, it's plural, so I got to go to this side, and I would use hablan, because that goes with they or ellas in Spanish, and that's what girls would be. So I would say las niñas or las chicas hablan. So here I have that chart once again, a little bit different look to it. This might be a good place to pause the video and copy this chart down, because it's showing you that I take to make AR verbs, to conjugate them, to use them in sentences. I'm going to put on these endings: o, as, a, amos, ais, an. You can even just keep repeating that until you get it memorized. O, as, a, amos, ais, an. O, as, a, amos, ais, an. And then remember, you need to know your subject pronouns so that you know how to use them in sentences. Yo for I, and so on. Okay, so now let's take some time to practice. I'd like you to copy this chart down. So go ahead and pause the video. When you're done copying it down, turn it back on. Okay, now that you have the chart copied down, at the top of it we're going to put our AR verb. And this time let's put the verb for to swim, which is nadar, to swim. Okay? Next, I'd like you to conjugate this verb so that you're saying I swim, you swim, and so on. Go ahead and pause the video, fill in the chart, and when you're done, turn the video back on, and I'll show you the correct answers. Okay, so now I'll show you how you should conjugate this verb. See if you did it correctly. Yo nado. We have an O ending for yo. Tú nadas. You swim. Él or ella or usted nada. Just an A ending. Nosotros or nosotras if it's all girls, we nadamos. Vosotros or vosotras nadáis. And ellos, ellas, ellos is they, male, ellas, they, female, or ustedes, you, plural, for formal, nadan. How'd you do with the endings? So that's basically it. That is how you conjugate an AR verb. Once you've learned your list of AR verbs, and you can keep adding that, learning more AR verbs, and once you've memorized these endings, you'll be able to use any AR verb in the present tense with any person or thing or animal, and you should have it down. All right, adios for now.